What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right, I think we are all set. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode number 514 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. We got a lot to dive into across the board with every single team. Plus, for the true blue fans, you know we're talking Survivor 44 at the end of the show, so stick around for that if you're a Survivor fan. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does help the show continue to grow. Helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia wherever they get their podcasts. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. It's where you get full video episodes of every podcast on our network, which every playlist now, if it is a podcast, it is categorized as such on our YouTube channel. So you can go check that out in the playlist tab. You get shorts, you get clips, original video content is all going on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We're at 403 subscribers right now, on that road to 500, and of course on that long road to 1,000. So go subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your thoughts on everything we discuss on tonight's show. And big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen: Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland. What's going on, Matt?
Oh, living the dream.
That was the microphone equivalent to Chris Collinsworth's chair slide.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia 76ers, Matt, they somehow, some way, have found a way to just pull everybody back in once again. It's brought to you by our friends and our amazing merch partners at PHI Apparel Company. Guys, there's no doubt in our minds that when you're rocking your merch from PHI Apparel Company, you're going to stand out in the crowd, whether you're at the Wells Fargo Center, at the Link during football season, at Citizens Bank Park this spring and summer, or at your local bar, at your house, with your friends, wherever you may be. PHI Apparel Company is the merch you should be rocking. They've got shirts, hoodies, crew necks. They've even got toddler sizes for some of their merch. So go to phiapparel.co. Check out the official Underground Sports Philadelphia merch capsules for all of our podcasts. We're working on getting some new stuff up very soon as well. When you're shopping, make sure you use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any and all orders at phiapparel.co. That's phiapparel.co. Use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all orders. They take down the Bucks. They continue surging, and I believe as of right now, 2 games out of the 2 seed once again.
Pulled us right back into it. Yeah, they did, and then it's so strange because through all this, you still have the Harden rumors picking up speed about him leaving for Houston in free agency, and that it feels, to some people, feels like a foregone conclusion. You know, like it's just it's a write-off at this point. That's where he's going. Yeah, they stopped the Bucks' 16-game win streak, which felt nice. I think just goes to show how inconsistent this team has been, though, because, you know, it feels like week to week we're kind of going from crisis to achievement. You know, and that, I mean, even last week, you know, like that Mavs loss was not great, and you even go back to the back-to-back against the Heat. You lose in rough fashion at home and then go without Embiid to Miami and play very well. It's just, they're such a bizarre team in that way, and I think that's been the story of their season so far, has just been how inconsistent they can be at times. You know, they had that big, like streak going from late November into December, January, where they looked like one of the best teams in basketball. That was where the Embiid MVP hype really sort of to balloon and swell upward. But I think this team still, I think if they want to make the conference finals, have to be the 1 seed, because I think they have to have a realistic shot at avoiding both the Celtics and the Bucks. I think the Celtics are the only team in the East I could not see them winning a 7-game series.
Yeah.
I think they could win the 7-game series against the Bucks. I still think the Celtics, though, I just do not see how this team beats the Celtics in 7. So that's where their end goal is. But yeah, they've looked good in moments. I think you have to somehow convince yourself that things are going to be different this year, but it still has that feeling and inevitability about it.
Yeah, and I mean, who would have thought putting Tyrese Maxey back in the starting lineup, things would change. But on top of, beating the Bucks in a typical game, one of those high emotional stakes games like that Bucks game was, typically you come back down to earth and you lose the next game, but they win a no defense game. They pretty much played the All-Star game against the Pacers and won 147-143 on Monday night. And then on Tuesday, they win 117-94. And they're back at it again on Friday, home against the Trailblazers, and then Sunday, home against the Wizards before they go out on the road for 3 against the Cavs, Hornets, and Pacers. On paper, a bit of a reprieve from what they've been kind of going through over the past couple of weeks schedule-wise, but, late March into April, it gets real tough again, so these are the moments that, if the Sixers want to stick around in that top 3 seed area, they got to take advantage of these games against, the Trailblazers, the Wizards, go toe-to-toe with the Cavs again, the Hornets, the Bulls. Like, those are teams that they have to beat before, facing some true playoff contending teams in the West when they go out west for that road trip.
Yeah, and you still have games against the Bucks and the Celtics, 1 each, and you could feasibly, play your way into a top 2 seed with either of those games. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think if you're like keeping the faith, that is what you're hoping for. But I still think this team probably settles where they are at the 3 seed and get a very interesting first round matchup against. Honestly, like the Nets are there now, but the way they've been sliding, it's probably the Heat, and I don't love that. I don't love going straight from a Heat series, which could go either way. I don't know that that's a guarantee, and then having to play the Celtics as it is. It just reeks of
2018,
either wildly disappointing first round exit or just a gut-wrenching like 6-game series against the Celtics where you just it never really feels close. It's a 6-game series that never really feels close. But I mean, the Knicks could even land there. That would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that this team has like this. I feel like this playoff is going to disappoint us in a way that we have yet to be this, which is shocking.
Shocking.
We've been disappointed, and I think every way that you can imagine, we've been disappointed by this team. I think the only way we haven't is we go up 3-0 and get reverse swept. Yeah. I think it's the only way, which I hope I didn't just put in the universe as a potential option for us. But I really think that's the only way this team doesn't get just absolutely embarrassed. I mean, we were like maybe a 3-1 is not off the table. I know that people were talking about it last year with the Raptors series that was going to happen. But I really feel like this team is going to disappoint us and I don't mean to be negative, but it's just I felt this way all year long, and I feel like it's been very hard for me to be like engaged with this team because when Doc Rivers is still your coach, it is so hard to feel like the playoffs are going to matter to you and that you're actually going to kind of realize the talent that you have on your roster. Like we've just seen him with the Sixers, with other teams, just constantly limit the ceiling. So that's what's holding me back so much.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it a number of times. Just like you can't put faith in a Doc Rivers-led team. He hasn't done anything to like earn your trust even before he got to the Sixers, outside of one of the most loaded rosters in 2008 that I'm sure he had little, input in on, those 4 guys in their prime going and winning a championship. So it's tough to trust Doc Rivers, but it seems like even with all the Harden rumors and everything, he's been a extremely positive vibes guy on the bench, with Tyrese Maxey, on the court when he and Embiid, set NBA history, becoming only, I think, the third pair of teammates to, record 30 points and 10 assists. So, like, even though this is all swirling in the news, I feel like it's a good sign for the now that, like, James Harden isn't really letting that stuff affect his game.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still we did this a few months ago, but yeah, Joel Embiid still leads in points per game, and James Harden leads in assists per game. And I remember going back, I don't think that there was a duo on the same team that have, one has averaged the most, has been the scoring leader, and one has been the assist leader in the NBA. So that speaks obviously to what a tremendous offensive duo. The one of the best offenses in the league. When James Harden and Embiid are on the floor. And I think that speaks to, if you're thinking about a potential playoff run and you think about what this team could be, there it is, I think so much, and it sounds like a broken record, but it's still the same issues, is that when those guys are not on the floor and you're not staggering minutes in a way that makes sense, because one of those guys should realistically always be out there for the Sixers. There really should be very little time where we're not having one of James or Embiid on the floor, but that's the way that it has happened. And, that is a Doc Rivers decision at times. But yeah, I mean, Embiid has had a great season, of course, and, he's done it in such an efficient way. And I think Harden's creativity has gone a little under the radar as well. So I think, I don't know that a team would love to play the Sixers, but at the same time, the fact that they haven't gotten past this, like, this speed bump in the second round, speaks a lot to their mental makeup at this point. I don't know what it is.
Franchise culture,
something.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Sixers, and I think it is kind of nice that, like, this little bit of a lull period in terms of, like, competition happens right when the fun basketball starts.
Right.
NCAA tournament, man. It's
what
our
a
time of
goddamn
year.
blessing.
It's our time of year,
God,
brother.
I just, what I was thinking? I was like, I just do not care enough. I need to care more about some random 19-year-old whose name I did not know until this week.
Excited to root for the kids.
It's all for the kids. Zach Edey, shout out. A name I did know before this year because I remember him from last year.
Yes.
But yeah, I love the March Madness talk and just basting in college basketball content to try and understand. I love this week too because you get the conference tournaments, so you get to kind of learn a little bit about some of the players that you're going to pretend like you know so much about, and the teams that you know so much about. Everything I've heard about college basketball this year is it is a wide open field. It is there's a lot of parity. There are like 8 or 9 teams that could win a championship. There's no true like dominant, buzzsaw team like we've had in years past, or 1 or 2 of those teams. Like there's a lot of just good, not great teams, and that I think is going to give us a fun March Madness. It's also, I didn't know this is Jim Nance's last March Madness tournament. That sucks. He's like,
I saw, I think Mark Titus was talking about this. He said it's Jim Nance's last March Madness. I think he's from Houston.
Yeah, he went to the University of Houston. It's in Houston, University of Houston is probably going to have a 1 seed. Could even be the number 1 overall seed. So yeah, stars aligning for them to get knocked down the Sweet 16. There's no way that it's too perfect for it to end the other way.
Make sure you guys go listen to our college basketball podcast as well, the Glue Guys, with Tom and O, and they're doing a great job. We've got a Selection Sunday live stream this coming Sunday on both the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel and the Glue Guys YouTube channel as well. So go check that out. For all the March Madness stuff. Underground Madness is back. Our bracket challenge group is made. It'll be tweeted out right after the show.
I don't want to toot my own horn. I have picked the correct national champion to the last 3 years.
That is true.
And the 1 year I didn't, I had Gonzaga in the final. So I was close.
That's on the record.
That is on the record. That is pure. That is pure in history. That is in the books. So I just jinxed myself. I'm going to pick so wrong. I'm going to finish in like the 2nd percentile. I'm sure of it.
That's called live television, folks.
That is, that's the way it goes. That's the way the
That's
news
how it
goes.
happens. Shout out to our new follower on Twitch. For whatever reason, Twitch just kills our mics whenever that happens. But I think with March Madness being as wide open as it is, it's going to be the most chaotic tournament I think we've ever had. Where there is no top dog, there's going to be potential for like a gazillion upsets that like nobody's going to know what the Final Four is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, even last year you had some pretty wild. I mean, UNC making the final as an 8 seed.
Yeah.
You had St. Peter's making a run last year, right? Like, you've kind of had one or two teams every year for the last few years, for the most part, like higher seeds making it into the deeper stages, and I think that brings a lot of excitement. You know, the fact too that a lot of the perennial like blue blood teams are not, like Duke, North Carolina is likely not even going to be at the tournament. Even someone like Kentucky, they're going to be in the tournament and they've turned a corner, but we're going to be like a 5 or 6 seed. Most people are used to them being a 1 or a 2. Yeah, a lot of these like sort of, historic teams are not going to be maybe at the level that we're used to seeing them at. So that I think is going to be really interesting too, because you're seeing, I think for a lot of people, Houston is not a college or a program that they typically associate with being like at the upper like tier of college basketball. But, for the most part, I think people are going to be a little surprised at that. But, there's some names on there too, right? But, I mean, even like teams like Marquette are up there, Kansas State will be like a higher seed. Even a team like Miami, who have in years past been more in like the 6 to 10 seed range. Like
No Villanova this year.
Yeah, no Villanova this year, right? Like there's a lot of teams that I think people are used to seeing, and it's going to be it's going to give some room to some teams to maybe make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, it's just looking at like the tops of every conference and everything. There's a lot of like different teams in there that we're not typically used to seeing that will probably get the bid to the NCAA tournament, but it's going to be a lot of fun once Selection Sunday rolls around and seeing who's actually in. And I mean, I think this might be the most unpredictable year of 1 seeds, depending on how the rest of these, conference tournaments go and everything. So I'm excited to just kind of see how everything, plays out. Like Fairleigh Dickinson got their bid because Merrimack can't qualify for,
which is a dumb rule in my eyes. Like I don't totally understand why that's just a rule. I understand maybe the first year, but like, because then you can't just I don't know, you can't like game the system in some way or something. Like, but even then, I don't fully understand why that's a rule. But yeah, shout out to the Knights.
After going like 4-22 last year, they're in the tournament.
Talking about being on the come up.
It's gonna
I
be
think
fun.
Kennesaw State made it for the first time, and 2 years ago they had won 1 game, I think, or like 1 or 2 games. So quite a few of these stories of teams like turning it around in the last few years.
It's gonna be tough for UCLA. They lost like one of their best players, to injury. So we'll see how their ride goes. But newly acquainted friend and listener of the show, Josiah Johnson, he went to UCLA obviously, and he was pretty much saying, when your next guy off the bench is a 5-star, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, a lot of these like big programs do have the luxury of usually bringing up. What's so funny is I always think about like a lot of these guys that it's just strange, because like to us we don't know these guys as well, but like to some hometown, these like the best athlete that people have ever seen in their entire lifetime. And like a lot of times they're like the 10th man on the bench here, but it's like literally like whatever town they came from in like Colorado, like probably named their high school gym after this person.
Yes.
When it's like to us, they're like this, like they're not even starting. Like it's just so funny the way it works sometimes. Like especially with college sports where they don't get like the notoriety and fame all that much, except in like their hometown usually, especially with like the bigger sports like this. But like everyone knows this person's name, like and will like if they see them out, they'll text friends like, dude, I saw like.
How shitty's it got to be though if you were like one of the best players to come out of Loyola Chicago, and you just already know that the gym's gonna get named after Sister Jean.
I know that is. I mean, I'm a little over the Sister Jean stuff. if I can
Yeah,
be
that felt
very
like it
candid.
should have been like a one and
It's a
done
cool,
like
it's a cool one-year
storyline.
thing. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not that invested in it anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with Loyola Chicago ruining a bracket of mine. It's totally not. It's not based on anything other than that. That is just untrue fact and substance, not emotion. So.
I saw this the other day. I forget who tweeted it, so I apologize. But they pretty much said, "Is there anybody on your like do not bet list or do not pick list when bracket season comes around?"
Purdue has broken my heart too many times.
Which is interesting because they're going to be a
right.
big dog this year.
Do not have good guard play though, and that is what I always look for in picking a March Madness team. You want to do two things. Here are my two tips. You can take these home with you. One, you don't pick a team that you actually think will win, and I don't mean that in a dumb way, but you don't pick the team with the highest odds because you know why? Because everyone else is picking that team. If you want to win your tournament challenge, whatever it is, even if it's in a smaller group, you don't want to pick like the one year that Gonzaga were undefeated going to the tournament. You don't necessarily want to pick Gonzaga, right? Because guess what? If you're in a group with 50 other people, 40 other people are picking Gonzaga too. So you're already like lowering your ability. Even though Gonzaga maybe had the best odds of the year, whatever, like I get it. But you got to pick a team that's like in that middle range. You got to find like the nice sweet spot where it's like team's got like a decent shot at winning a title, but people are not on to them as much. It's going to be a little harder this year because there's no like outstanding favorite, and there's no Duke or UNC, which are very popular like homer picks. Like Duke especially is always anytime they're in the tournament, which they'll be. But they're not a top seed this year,
Right.
And that's typically what attracts a lot of people, to picking them to win the title. So you have to really kind of be smart about choosing that. And number two is guard play is so important. We forget every year in March Madness that someone who can create their own shot and someone who can it very often comes down to final possessions, and big men are important. Like they have a role, but a guard is always going to be so much more important and so much more likely to be taking these final shots, be going to the line potentially. And Purdue does have like younger guards, which potentially worries me. We've seen big men like Zach Edey. He's obviously talented, but seen teams like this fail. We've seen Purdue fail and really like under deliver. It's Purdue and Tennessee are two teams that I just cannot. I can't do it anymore. The last 3-4 years they've been like sneaking around, and Purdue had a decent tournament last year, but those two teams I think for me are just cannot imagine myself picking them further than like Sweet 16, Elite 8. I can't do it. Can't get hurt.
I think mine are Iowa State always screws me one way or another. So I've avoided them as much as possible. Missouri, because they're always in that 8-9 game and they always lose it no matter what seed they are.
They are the perennial 8-9, like just coin flip game, but yet they always lose.
They are the living embodiment of a coin flip, and those are the two teams that I always avoid like the plague. And one way or another, they always screw me. If I don't pick them, they advance to like the Elite 8, and if I do pick them, they get eliminated first weekend. So
yeah.
Word of advice to everybody too, because I did this for the first time this year and was able to afford to do it. So obviously, do this if you can. Always look ahead and see when March Madness starts. I took off the Thursday. Have 4 straight days of college basketball to kind of just take in and consume. So always look ahead on your calendars if you can obviously afford to do it, and take off that Thursday, because it is probably one of the worst days of just being stuck at work.
Yes. I had a teacher in high school that would always take off the Thursday and Friday. It's like, man, you got the right idea.
Yep. I am picking up what you're putting down. Also, sneaky school that has just like become a March Madness like perennial. Oral Roberts.
Yeah, they have Max East. I forget it. Anyway, one of the best scorers in college basketball. He has a weird last name that is not pronounced the way that it is spelled. But yeah, he's
ABMAS.
It's Eastmas. They obviously had a big upset a few years ago, which one of my good friends who watches absolutely zero sports. One of my favorite things is I always have him fill out a bracket. He predicted St. Peter's last year. He predicted Oral Roberts was upsetting Ohio State, I believe. He predicted those, so I stay tuned on my Twitter to see what he's gotten some of these right somehow. And I think that just goes to show what a fluke March Madness can be sometimes. The early rounds are always a little shaky. So you have to be prepared for a little bit of chaos.
Very excited for March Madness. But yeah, make sure you tune into our Selection Sunday live stream. Sunday going live around 5:45 Eastern time on YouTube. But Matt, the Phils, they've kind of broken camp a little bit. The World Baseball Classic guys are at their camps now. But a little bit of a surprise today. Gregory Soto reported to Phillies camp. He will not be participating in the World Baseball Classic, had visa issues, but he is now in Clearwater and will be with the Phillies for spring training, which is exciting. He's going to be a massive piece of this bullpen. Was obviously the crown jewel of that trade that sent Nick Maton. And why am I blanking on Car Shield guy? Maton and totally blanking on our other outfielder that we had.
That we just
traded to Detroit for Gregory Soto.
Already out of my mind.
Oh, it's an
Vierling?
M. Matt Vierling.
Yeah. It's okay. Once they're off the team, they're just
and they sent him to Detroit, so it's like, come on. But Soto in camp. Still no update on Andrew Painter, which is kind of getting concerning.
Yeah. It was a vague injury to begin with. Don't love, and I mean this is the worry too with especially a younger guy. Kind of have to manage the body a little bit. So hopefully it's just that. Hopefully they're just there's really hopefully there's just nothing really to update. You know what I mean? There's no I feel like there was something catastrophically wrong, or if there's something really a big setback. I feel like we would have heard about it by now. I think silence in this case might actually be a positive, in that maybe it's just a little bit of load management stuff. Younger guy throwing a lot of heat at more major league batters. Maybe that means too. Maybe he's not there on opening day. Maybe he just needs a little more time, get used to the body.
Yeah. It is just concerning whenever you see pitcher elbow.
Yeah, that puts the fear of God in you for sure.
But I mean, luckily this team has Bailey Falter, who really stepped up towards the tail end of last year and into the early parts of the postseason, and kind of a spring training darling right now. Jake Cave is making a huge case to be a bench bat.
Yeah, great name too.
Yes.
By the way, I feel like we've had a guy or two every year, especially at the beginning of the season, whether it's someone within the system or someone that we pick up on some sort of very cheap deal, kind of catch fire a little bit and be a little bit of a darling, and you'll see if that maintains. But these are the nice things out of spring training. You get some of these guys that haven't heard of or that you're not as familiar with that start to make a name for themselves, and I think there's room for platoon guy or two within this Phillies depth lineup, and you're going to need it this year. So
yeah, there are two primary spots left pretty much on the roster that are being duked out for between position players, because obviously you have your 8 starters of JT, Reese, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Schwarber, Brandon Marsh, Castellanos, and then you have Garrett Stubbs as your backup catcher. That's a lock. Edmundo Sosa, he's your super utility guy. That's a lock. And then according to Corey Seidman, saying Josh Harrison is essentially a lock to make the roster at this point, which is a good sign there. And then he says the primary candidates for the final 2 spots are Jake Cave, Dalton Guthrie, Derek Hall, and then Cody Clemens, the son of Roger Clemens. Didn't realize Jake Cave was 30 years old, but now that I'm reading his stats, I remember when he did play for the Twins. Simon wrote that he struggled in 2020 and he broke his back in 2021.
He's still alive.
So he's back and he's 5 for 9 with a double, a triple, and a homer in 3 games this spring. And then he hit another a 2-run home run on Wednesday to pretty much, keep pushing the pressure there on Derek Hall, putting the pressure on Dalton Guthrie and Cody Clemens. I feel like those 4 guys as a whole, like, we're hearing a lot about them, and they're performing really well. So it is going to be interesting to see what the coaching staff decides to do with those final 2 roster spots.
Yeah, very curious.
And it is one of those weird things, too, that I feel like in years past, I think we talked about this a little bit, like, it was Bohm, it was Bryson Stott, like, the position players, and obviously, Mickey Moniak for a little bit, too. It's been the position players that you've been kind of keeping an eye on, like, who's going to make it out of camp for the young guys, and now it's kind of these super utility guys that we kind of know who they are, that are trying to make the roster, and then the shift to, keeping an eye on the young guys is a lot of pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But World Baseball Classic for Team USA gets started on Saturday, I believe. They should have a pretty simple time getting out of their bracket. They have their first scrimmage tonight, and the roster is absolutely crazy. And it's wild when Kyle Schwarber's hitting third. I want to pull the lineup here for Team USA. It's Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, Kyle Schwarber, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Kyle Tucker, Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, and then Jeff McNeil from the Mets.
Jesus.
Might be one of the best lineups of all time.
It is a stacked lineup.
But the World Baseball Classic's underway, and we are a month away from opening night, which we will be doing a live tailgate podcast April 8th. We kind of teased it towards the end of the World Series. We've been dropping hints here and there. We have a name for the podcast series that we'll be doing all summer long down at CBP. It is Underground Sports Philadelphia presents Ring It, a live tailgate podcast series. So a bunch of Phillies games this year. We'll be doing live podcasts with a whole bunch of Underground Sports Philadelphia personalities. Pretty much the entire crew is going to be down there on April 8th, which is very exciting. We'll get to experience the Phils for the first time this year and get back to Citizens Bank Park. And you know what happened last time we were there. Saw Nicky C hit that first home run in a Phils uniform. So if you're going to opening night, not opening day, which is Thursday at 12:35 p.m., Saturday, the 4 o'clock game, we'll be podcasting before the game and everything, and we'll give you guys more details as they come through, but put in your calendars and come through to the tailgate, come through to the live podcast. Very excited for that to go down in just a month. But Matt, the Eagles, it seems like a lot of guys, and this is going to be brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer, who will be part of our live podcast tailgate series, the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. You guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com, get set for the NCAA tournament with Kenny's on deck. You can use that all new and improved Kenny tracker at kenwoodbeer.com. You can get it at your local liquor store if you're in the Philadelphia area, or if you're in the eastern Pennsylvania area, you can also find it at your local Home Goods. So go to kenwoodbeer.com. You got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. CJ Gardner-Johnson puts out a thank you Philadelphia video last night on his social media apps of choice, and it sent Eagles Twitter into a tizzy. And the more you look at it, the more it kind of feels like he's probably not going to be back.
I would say almost certainly not going to be back. He's going to be an expensive person to retain. That was going to be, I think that was clear for everyone. But it's a tough thing because he's obviously such a difference maker for this team. But this team has a lot of holes to plug. He's one of many, especially defensive free agents leaving, and I think it would be tough because the Eagles' cap situation is not ideal. They don't really have a ton of wiggle room to begin with. To kind of allocate a lot of money to him is maybe not the best move, and it seems like he might go get a big deal somewhere else that maybe the Eagles couldn't match. And this is his opportunity to get paid, and it's a tough pill no matter what. But I I think it was always going to be a challenge to retain him regardless. Even if they had a really good cap situation, I think it's still a tough thing.
It's one of those things that I'm keeping an eye on because Denard Wilson did leave. He's going to the Baltimore Ravens. Something tells me one of, if not both, James Bradberry and C.J. Gardner-Johnson are going to Baltimore.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, you're also losing Hargrave, Bradberry, two big key additions as well. And you're gonna have to try and replace, especially Hargrave's production, which went a little under the radar this year because of what Reddick was doing, and I think what the team overall was doing. He was sort of someone that maybe didn't get the praise that he fully deserved, but he's again going to go out there, and he's had two really good, really strong seasons back to back now, so that's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. And again, it was a very talented defense, but I think this team, they have a lot of options. They have some flexibility, especially in the draft this year. Look at comp picks for those guys too, right? Which helps refill the cupboard going forward, and that's that is in some ways a good thing. And I think the Eagles are maybe looking to be a little flexible, through the free agency and the draft and for this season, because they have some big long-term decisions to look at too.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot with Eagles free agency, and somebody brought up a good point on Twitter. You pay C.J. Gardner-Johnson this year, you're more than likely not going to be able to pay Devontae Smith next year.
Right, and that's where the challenge comes in, is that, it's not just about this free agency period. It's not just about this season. You have to be looking longer, and you have a Jalen Hurts contract to be considering as well. I just think there's just a lot of moving parts, and occasionally you lose a guy of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, in this rotation, So it's tough. I think the fans really liked him. He's obviously a very good player too, which always helps. So I'm sure, though, he's obviously going to get paid very well somewhere, and he's going to have a lot of places to choose from.
I also think seeing what the New York Football Giants decided to do, it just has Jalen Hurts and his whole team sitting back, waiting for that phone call for him to sign the dotted line of just a blank check, because, my goodness, even though Dave Gettleman is gone, the New York Giants are still absolute morons.
I don't understand at all. You could just franchise tag him, kind of punt again this year and rethink some things. I mean, it's funny too, because they already put themselves in this position by declining his fifth-year option, right? It was their own choice to kind of have this decision to make this offseason, and now I'm very surprised to see them commit that much time to Daniel Jones. He definitely looked better this year, but this was 1 year out of his entire career where he's looked good. He's looked like a average quarterback, and even then passing is still not amazing. Yeah. But you could also say it doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons that can address that this offseason. And, Brian Daboll is a good coach, so, you can at least buy into the fact that they might improve and upgrade in a lot of ways. But, man, I just it feels risky to make that kind of bet based off 1 year. I mean, we don't really care for the franchise tag, but Daniel Jones types of players are the reason the franchise tag was made, and the reason that teams use
Kirk
it,
Cousins,
because it just makes more sense to be well, we don't really think you're that guy.
But Matt, when you can franchise tag a running back, you just got to do it.
Again, it's bizarre. I think it's strange, because it felt like the Giants were kind of on a little bit of an upswing, but it feels like some weird.
They pulled the Scooby-Doo mask off and said, "We're still here."
Right.
And they're not the only team to franchise tag a running back in the division.
Right.
The Cowboys are franchise tagging Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
And as someone who can appreciate how talented Tony Pollard is, I feel terrible for him, because I felt like this was going to be an opportunity for him to get out of Ezekiel Elliott's shadow and go to a team, get his bag, see how he performs as kind of the lead guy. And then also, the Eagles wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. Because quite frankly, I think over the last 2 seasons or so, if you've watched the games, you can kind of tell Tony Pollard was an X factor at running back more so than Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, Tony Pollard has definitely certainly had the more explosive plays. I think Zeke still has these moments where he's able to turn like the small gains into more like beneficial gains, right?
Mhm.
Like turn 3 into 5 yards, and that ultimately might be a little more valuable depending on how you look at it, like depending on what you want out of your offense. Pollard has like these big like highlight plays, and that's obviously a threat. See how he recovers from this injury too, right? Though, because like that could obviously affect some of that explosiveness, some of that athleticism that we've seen from him. But yeah, I think if you're looking around the division, if you're the Eagles, you're not so far like really worried. I think there was some room for the Giants to really maybe, and there's still free agency, there's still the draft, and teams can change, but doesn't really feel like teams are making like a big step forward just yet. Again, that could change though.
Yeah, and then the other quarterback dominoes have fallen. Derek Carr's going to the Saints, which I think you and I can kind of both agree. Still doesn't change our opinion that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC. Gets a ridiculous contract from that money laundering scheme that is the New Orleans Saints. And then the New York Jets front office had dinner with Aaron Rodgers.
It's just I can't think of a more toxic situation than putting Aaron Rodgers in New York City. Well, technically New Jersey, but I cannot imagine that.
And in just 10 years' time, Aaron Rodgers will be the one who is allegedly stealing money from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Jordan Love, you're next. But yeah, I mean, free agency, I think, for the NFL starts next week. So that'll be definitely something to keep an eye on as we shift to the other football. The Philadelphia Union, Matt, it's brought to you by our friends over at Bino Board. The next big tabletop game for your man cave, your she shed, your tailgates. They will also be part of our live tailgate series this summer down at Citizens Bank Park. Think paper football meets foosball, and you've got Bino. They've got officially licensed boards for Arsenal and Liverpool from the Premier League. Matt, you have the Liverpool board.
I do.
It's very clean. They also have still in stock some of their World Cup collection for a limited time, and they're all on sale. Under $100 for some of the boards. Get them while they're still available. They have the Germany edition and the Croatia edition still available, so get them while they're hot. And they just restock some of their accessories as well to upgrade your boards to make them look absolutely clean. So go to binoboard.com. That's BINHOBOARD.com. Use code BINOUSP. You get 10% off any and all orders from our friends over at Bino. Go tell your story from the other side of the pitch. BINOboard.com. Code BINOUSP. Matt, the Union, they lose their first match of 2023, playing in the CONCACAF Champions League as well, and we had a dog run on the field.
Yeah,
Stole the show.
As it is often to happen at some of these Central American stadiums, you get either adverse weather conditions, field conditions, and occasionally an animal finds its way. I think we all appreciate when like a cat or a dog or something finds its way on the field. More common for like a cat or something, because you can kind of see how a cat might make its way. A dog is always a little more surprising, but it does happen on occasion. Yeah, 0-0 draw in El Salvador yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
The days run together this time of year. The loss in Miami was tough. Lost to two just unbelievable goals as well. It's a little concerning that we haven't seen them put together like a lot of consistency so far this year. It's 3 games in, so it's not abnormal for teams to maybe have a little bit of a slow start. And the Union have not been a fast team out of the gates typically. If we can remember their start of last season, it was a little stop and start as well. So you're not hitting any like panic buttons yet, but yeah, you would have liked to see them. I think I really didn't feel that they were that competitive in the Inter Miami game. I felt that there was just really no. I didn't find the rhythm that we were so used to seeing last year, and I mean it didn't help too that when you go down, Union are a team that I think really thrive in positions where they're able to counter, and it just didn't seem like they were able to do that in this game. And you had a few maybe missed opportunities to get back on the scoreboard, but for the most part, I felt like Miami deserved the win. It was sort of an outplay type of game. And yeah, I mean, you go even back to the first game against the Crew. I didn't think they were great in the first half. A little lucky with some of the penalties, but I think largely played better in the second. But I think that's now, 2 games where you've had some kind of mixed messaging, and then the game last night was one of really low opportunity. And I don't think it's really even that bad of a result to go away and get a draw and be able to come back to Philly with the opportunity to advance. I think you could do a lot of worse.
Yeah, and then Saturday, hosting Chicago, to kind of bounce back and get right almost from that Miami game, being back home. I feel like the Union, and we've talked about this a ton, like they just perform well at home. They've got arguably the best home field advantage in all of MLS. So for them to be back home for a couple, I think will do them well, and hopefully the offense starts to click against Chicago and see how they match up against the team that, early in the season you kind of want to get these kinks out, I'd say, especially for this Union team where they don't start fast. You want to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit against Chicago and then go back on Tuesday for that second leg of Champions League before you hit the road next Saturday against Montreal.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing too, like, positioning becomes so much more important. A little less this year though, right? Because we talked about the expanded playoff format, and it obviously doesn't get that bye. Obviously, you're going to be going for the supporter shield and things like that, and you don't want to be losing ground in that race, because if you think to the last maybe like the first month or two of last season, Union were not in the same form, and part of that too is because they had, I think, a little bit more of a team that had to gel a little bit with some new signings, and had to replace some departures as well. But you saw the kind of form and rhythm they got into, especially in the summer. That was just a different type of team. But if one or two of those results are different, this team, that final is played in Philly, right? And they maybe have the supporter shield too. Like, just things can change, right? And it's so important to still do well in the regular season. There's still that incentive. It's a long season though. You don't want to get too bogged down and maybe a disappointing result or two this early on. But yeah, you do want to correct it sooner than later.
100%. So we'll see what happens with the Union. And as we do every single episode when it's in season, it's our Buffs and Snuffs Survivor segment, brought to you by our friends over at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. You guys can go to tomahawkshades.com, check out their extensive collection of small batch eyewear, including sunglasses, blue light plus glasses. They've got prescription lenses available. They've got ski goggles available. Go to tomahawkshades.com. Who have also partnered with Survivor legend Tyson Apostle, and use our code USP for 25% off already an affordable product. It's way better than those big name brands that are already ripping you off, and it's at the same high quality as all of them for a fraction of the price, and we're giving you an even bigger fraction off, 25% off when you go to tomahawkshades.com and use code USP for sunglasses, blue light glasses, everything in between. Shout out to our friends at Tomahawk Shades. Matt, first episode of 44 in the books, and we lose 2 castaways. One by medical evacuation, which I think the medic appearance is going to hit the over this year, and one by one of the craziest tribal councils in recent memory. Maddie goes home, and
we hardly knew you. Literally.
Just an unbelievable tribal council.
I think it was a throw your hands up in the air kind of tribal council in terms of, like, I have no idea what's going on. Jamie had, I think, one of the strangest meltdowns and freakouts that I've ever seen. And I get, like, it's so different when you're out there, I'm sure, and you don't really know who to believe. And I'm sure it can be overwhelming. I don't feel that she was on anyone's radar, and all of a sudden got very paranoid about her name being thrown in. And this was all with a discussion about, like, who to vote out with other people. Like, it wasn't like she had heard a name that someone was being sketchy. Like, they were just, like, talking about who to vote for, and she just, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it actually in Survivor, and she just totally panicked, and then at Tribal said she's gonna play her shot in the dark, and I could not believe it. I could not. She said it, when they were talking. I was like, okay, she's feeling a little nervous. I think that's totally normal. I'm sure it is. The first vote, you want to get it right, and you're not totally sure yet. You're not totally sure if you can trust people yet. But to actually go through with it is insane. It's even funnier that she was actually safe. She was not in danger whatsoever.
Was that the first successful shot in the dark?
one? And it ignited a lot of chaos, because then I think Matthew makes his choice too. Like, well, let me play my. I think he realized the way the vote was going to go, and maybe wanted to stay neutral and play it off as like he was afraid. I don't know. And then Brandon smartly sees all this happen. He's like, I'm gonna play mine because I don't like the look at any of this. And that's how Maddie ends up going home. I've never seen.
And Lauren also used her bank your vote advantage.
Yeah, which was smart in that situation, I think, because like she told the lie that she didn't have a vote, and then she kind of got caught in that lie. I don't know if she knew that everyone was aware that maybe they thought she was lying about it, but she can say, look, I didn't vote. That's so. She has that at least. I think that was like the best way to do it. I thought she actually played that advantage pretty well. I didn't even touch on Brandon and finding the idol. And, it's such a tough thing because, it's so public, right? Like it's in a very public space, which is the point of putting it in like that very open, like bird cage. But Maddie sees him, and I think there's more to it that we didn't see. Like she definitely saw him, and like there was a conversation about what to do. And I think ultimately it sucks because I think he did do the right thing. Because when you don't really want to work with the person that knows your secret, you can't exactly keep it a secret anymore. So you might as well share it with the tribe. I don't think it was unreasonable to think that it could have been something to potentially benefit the tribe. Of course, it was likely to be like an idol or an advantage or something like that. But I don't think it was like crazy to be like, well, let me just open it with the tribe instead, because I really don't like the person and I don't have a vision with this person moving forward. So I feel. But it's out of his hands now, too. Like he's on it, and now he's a fake idol that he could use on someone. So at least he's kind of clean now.
Yeah, Brandon caught him. NFL legend and Newtown, Pennsylvania zone. It's tough to top such a and like the medical team coming out. Like we had Matthew like falling off.
I had no
clue
what he was thinking doing that. I have zero idea what he was thinking.
And we tweeted the clip from @BuffsandSnuffs. Go follow on Twitter if you aren't already. And so many people like reacting to it and everything. It was like, why would they film this? Blah, 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 blah. And apparently on the new after show podcast that Jeff is hosting, they say that if the production team sees anybody doing anything like out of the ordinary, they automatically fire up the drones and just go document it. But the fact that you go and climb this already like wet, slippery surface, no shoes on, no shirt on.
Insane. This thing has literally been crafted by the most destructive force in nature, like the tides and water. And you're like, I bad choice. I felt bad. You feel bad when people get hurt and stuff. And like, I didn't like that he got hurt, but it was like, I think he needed to learn that lesson actually, that like maybe don't climb those in normal times. Don't climb those when you're like in a remote part of the world where like you can't realistically you can't get help that immediately. Like they're gonna help you, like they have medic, but like it's not like there's a hospital down the road, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you're still in a bad spot. Did feel bad for Bruce that he gets sent home early. I guess anytime too that's like you've delayed, like it seemed like headache symptoms or stuff, like anytime you like hit your head really hard and you have a cut, and then maybe I don't know how long later, like 7 or 8, 10 hours later, something like that, you start to have more symptoms, more negative effects. That does get scary because you don't know about like any concussions or any like blood clots, or if you're like you don't know, like, and so it sucks, but it seemed like it was. I just wish there's a way that they could get pulled from the game and have like an incubation period where they're like just getting them checked out at like a proper medical service, right? And they're still. It does suck that like in a situation like that where ultimately he's fine, everything was good, but he has to leave the game as a result. It sucks.
Yeah. In those situations too, you hope that like down the line, if everything is good medically for them moving forward, like they're able to get another chance.
So yeah, Jeff said that on his podcast.
That's
Apparently,
what I
that he's
thought.
already been invited back, to play another series, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So yeah, we get 2 castaways gone. Soka sweeps the reward and immunity. Tika wins the other immunity. Thoughts on the immunity idol this season?
Jeff was super into it. A little worried about his. He was really into stabbing the air with the knife. He seemed really jazzed up about it. There's a weird like medieval theme going on. Like even the voting booth has like a little chess set kind of thing.
I even like remember like the preview video they showed. There was like the knight.
Yeah,
They showed like the armor and everything.
I don't know if that's gonna like work its way in.
Now we got like that bird cage too.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's as far as immunity idols go, it's a nice one. I think it's a pretty nice one. I like that it works in like the 2 different ones into one thing. That's always cool instead of just like
sweet.
Here's a big trophy, here's a slightly smaller trophy. I like that it's kind of you get the 2-in-1 type of deal. That is nice.
I saw. I think the best meme that was floating around was like live look at Survivor 44's immunity idol, and it was just the game covers of Pokemon Sword and Shield.
That's good stuff.
But going into tonight, I don't know how you top such a unbelievable and just like unpredictable premiere.
Unpredictable is the right word for it. I don't know. I think part of it was a little bit of sloppiness, and I think that can be good. You don't want a full season of that. It's nice to have an episode here or there of, I don't want to call anyone incompetent, but like that was not fully evolved gameplay. I didn't think, like there was a lot of just,
They have not been there before.
Yeah, anxiety and paranoia really taking over. That was very instinctual. That was not. That's not maybe the most measured and calculated Survivor gameplay I've ever seen. So maybe we get a little more of that this week.
Yeah, we'll see how it all unfolds. Make sure you follow @BuffsandSnuffs on Twitter and keep up to date with everything we're doing with our Survivor coverage. And make sure you follow @UndergroundPHI on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI. Follow Matt on Twitter @Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does help the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. It's where you get full video episodes of every podcast, live streams, original content, shorts, all that good stuff is going on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're at 403 right now. Let's keep that thing going. And be a friend, tell a friend, share the channel with your people. And big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen. Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland, and our incredible merch partners, PHI Apparel Company. Go to phiapparel.co. Stand out in the crowd. Get your merch for our Ring It podcast series this summer at Citizens Bank Park. And use code UNDERGROUND when you go to checkout for 10% off any and all merch orders. And this has been episode number 514 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. We'll see you on Sunday for our Selection Sunday live stream, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia for that one. And for Matt, I'm KB. Until next time, we are signing off. Peace.